Tu veux rester assis? Les diapos, elles sont là. Donc l'idée, tout le monde, c'est de questionner le fond sur ce qui est ça, ce qui c'est. Moi, je te laisse faire. Oui, tu l'as fait il y a 2 jours. Mais c'est eux, c'est ça de la départ. C'est pas oui. C'est juste un peu avant que je t'en reparle. Je sens pas obligé. Appelle ta maman. Bonjour. Bonjour. Denis, appelle ta maman, je peux le dire. C'est sympa de venir. Vous avez eu l'info comment? Par mail. Par mail? Bon, bah bienvenue. Très content d'avoir au moins un extérieur. On ne sera pas très nombreux, hein, vous pouvez rester. On va attendre 9h05, ça vous va?
Non, moi c'est bon.
Donc tu as fini tes cours? Alors, de toute façon, Zoom et tout ça qui vont vous présenter, c'est eux qui vont démarrer. C'est vous qui présentez. C'est la matin, parce que c'est très bon. So who's going to make the introduction? Et moi, je vais on sent tout à fait la peau. J'ai même pas été, à mon avis, tu vois, je n'étais même pas répertorié de leur liste. Alors, ça me moins. Non, on a été emmerdés par les trolls, tu sais, tous ces gens qui font des voix, qui sont. C'est difficile de savoir. Très influent, qui désigne tout ce qui est.
c'est des gens parce que c'est des anciens agros, parce que c'est une famille, ils se connaissent. Et donc ces trolls-là, ils se sont fait une place.
Enfin, il y a des trolls et des pas trolls.
Ouais, il y a un peu un mélange.
Trolls qui sont des francs trolls. Puis il y a des médias qui ont sauvé.
C'est ça.
Qui en fait sont traités par des gens qui sont assez différents. Par exemple, je ne sais pas si vous connaissez cette commune, qui s'appelle
L'écriture environnementale.
En gros, général, il y a ça. Il y a plein de centaines de
Allô? Ça, c'est pas mal. So you can one of them for you, one for you and one for us.
Christophe, on peut y aller? On peut y aller?
Okay. Is that okay? Does he understand English? Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you in our open access seminar. I would like to thank you all for taking your time to join us. In this seminar, we will talk about the evaluation and publication of scientific articles, ongoing changes following the rise of open science, by which they will focus on how scientific articles have traditionally been evaluated and published and how practices are currently changed, including the rise of preprints and open archives. To speak about this important matter, for us researchers, I would like to introduce you to our two guests. Professor Denis Bourget, that since 2011 is leading a double activity of expertise management of research, among others, members of Section 29 of CON on NRS and the High Council of Biotechnology, and production of knowledge mainly on evolutionary biology of corn borer, Ostinia nubialis, and pesticide resistance. The research activities he has involved are focused on the adaptation of insects to their hosts, and in the case of crop pests, the control and methods to use control on them. He was involved in research on other organisms, including 2 parasite wasps. And now, Denis Bourget is a member of UMR, Centre de Biologie et Gestion des Populations. And also Thomas Guillemot, lab leader and senior scientist in the field of population genetics and evolutionary biology, selection, molecular ecology, and insect pests. He is a co-founder and co-manager with Denis Bourget and Benoît Facon of Peer Community in the PCI, an alternative publication system based on peer reviews and recommendations of preprints. He is also a member of the managing board and a recommender of PCI evolutionary biology and PCI ecology, also as an admirer of PCI paleontology. He works on subjects such as evolutionary biology and invasion biology. His research also focuses on the development of new methods to estimate demographic, genetic, and historical parameters of bioinvasions, as also to describe invasion routes, and the application of those methods to ongoing and documented invasions of socioeconomically important species. So I would like to let them speak now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So I am Thomas and he's Denis. So we are going to try to present you something about how the system of publication of science works. Okay, so we are going to present you some facts and figures, and you will have to participate to this presentation. Okay, so we will try to ask you questions to know what you know, etc., etc. And then we will try to have a discussion about this subject. The first thing that we can start with is with a simple question, which would be, do you know why we, the scientists, the researchers, do you know why we publish? Do you have a simple idea of that? What is your idea? Do you know why we try to publish articles? Do not hesitate to answer, even if it's not completely sure. Yeah.
To progress all together. If we don't publish, we can redo exactly the same things that other people, but if we publish, somebody can walk the next steps. And all together, we are advancing far more fast this way.
This is what we call making public your research.
Exactly.
Other reasons for publishing. Yes.
To express what we did and what it will be useful for others, like farmers, or how can it be useful for the public.
Okay, so it's again an idea of communicating the results of science for the public. And an interesting point here is that the public is not necessarily only researchers. It can be more than that. It can be the general public, it can be teachers, it can be journalists, it can be farmers, it can be stakeholders, etc., etc. And not only scientists. And this is very important because when we write articles and when we try to publish articles, we have to get in mind the fact that it's not only for scientists, it's also for the general public. It can be.
More and more people using internet, more and more people, citizens and stakeholders, they can have access to publication, and this is very important for communication information. Other reasons for publishing, it's only to make your research public, or what do you want? Do you think researchers want to publish their results? Other reasons.
It doesn't work?
I don't think.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it's work. Right now, scientists are evaluated on publications. So now there is how we say a side effect of communicating is now if we don't communicate it, it don't exist. So we are evaluated about that. So we need to publish only also to have good rates.
I have the feeling that we have someone who has an experience in publication here. So you already have published. Yeah. So is anybody else who have already published articles here? No? You have no experience with publication of articles? Yeah, you are too young, it's quite normal. Maybe you have experience in publication? You already have published scientific articles. Ah, okay. So you know how it works, probably, already. Okay, excellent.
So, but this is one of the reasons, but this is a dark side of publishing. It's like what we call publish or perish. It's like if you don't publish, you perish, so you are not considered, you have no means. If you apply for money for funding your research, maybe you won't have money, but this is not the good way, I mean, the good reasons for publishing. So we have probably one step, so making public to several public. No other reasons for? When you find something, don't you want to say, I have found these results. I'm the first to find these results. For example, if you have like patents, you could say, okay, I am the first. But it's not only patents. It's like, I've got some results. It's original. I mean, that's something new. And I want to tell people that I'm the first to have this idea. It could be this results, or it could be this idea. So that's one another reason for making your research, publishing your research, is to claim everybody to say, I'm the one, or we are the one, because most of the time there are many authors, to say, we are the first to find these results.
Because there is an interesting property in the articles we publish. If I publish an article presenting the result A, okay, Denis won't be able to publish again an article presenting result A because it has already been published, okay? So once a result has been published, it is published for the collectivity, and then if you try to publish again the same, then it is plagiarism, okay? So when you publish, you create something like a proof of antecedents, that says, okay, I am the one who discovered this fact, and somebody else cannot claim he is the discoverer of this result. Okay, so it's a way to ensure the intellectual property of what you have found, and this is very, very important. Okay.
Think about very competitive fields. For example, the first one who finds the virus for HIV, which was the first to find this one, you can be a Nobel Prize. I mean, that's for recognition. But also for, I mean, other field of research, there is several teams working on specific questions. So the first who finds the results could be very interesting. I mean, in terms of recognition, in terms of means, I mean, for working, so it's really important. This is a proof of anteriority. Other reasons.
If you think about very old scientific results that were discovered maybe during the Middle Age or after the Middle Age, in the 16th century or 17th century, there is a very important fact, that is, we still know the results that were found at this moment, at this time, okay? So we today, in the 21st century, we still know scientific facts that were discovered maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, etc., etc. So it's a way, the fact of publishing something, publishing a book or publishing an article, it's a way to ensure a continuity in time. It's a way to archive the results, okay? If I publish something today, it is with the hope that in 100 years, the people will be able to read my results because they have been archived in a journal or in a book or in a whatever medium, okay? So the fact of publishing is very important in terms of making available at the present moment, but to make available the results also for the future. So to keep available the results of science, and this is to archive the results of science, okay? So it's important to make the science public, it's important to make a proof of antecedents, and it's important to archive the results of science. But this is not the only reasons. There are some other reasons.
So if you find some reasons, why you want to publish them in a scientific journals? Why you don't just put a link to internet saying, okay, that's fine, here are my results and are just good. Find it and cite them, it's good. Is there any reasons for submitting it for publishing in a journal? To be judged, yeah. Another way, to be evaluated, exactly. So that's one key point of science, to be validated by other people, experts in the field, saying, okay, this is correct. Claiming to other people that you can trust these results, they are good, they are well analyzed, and you can rely on them. That this is the scientific evaluation, the peer, what we call, and we will talk a lot about this, peer reviewing process.
So for instance, you said that you were waiting for some peer reviews about your article. So you already received some peer reviews?
It's the third correction. Yeah, the final, I hope.
Do you think that you improved your manuscript?
Yes, yes. Especially because when you are working with, you have a different point of view. So you expect to someone who also working it can aggregate somehow some further knowledge, make you explore different thoughts and different discussions. So, yeah.
So this is the evaluation of articles, okay? These evaluations are made by two kinds of people. The first kind of people is the editor of the journal, okay? Who will try to evaluate your article on the basis of some reports that are made by experts in the field of your article. And these experts, they are called reviewers, okay? So when you send an article to a journal, for submission, your article will be evaluated by an editor who will take an editorial decision based on the work of expertise of some experts that are called reviewers. And this process is called the peer review. Okay? So the reviewers, they make the peer review, and then they send their report to the editor, and then the editor says, okay, given the reports that I'm reading now, I consider that your work is okay, or I consider that your work is not okay, and that you have to make this change or this change, and you have to redo this experiment, or you have to redo this statistical treatment, or you have to rewrite your conclusion because it's false, or you have to, etc., etc., etc.
So example, so this is a slide summarizing what we are saying. So what is the value of publishing scientific articles? So we said it makes science public. We said this at the beginning. It ensures the quality of science. It is the evaluation. We were talking about this. It defines the anteriority of research, of results. It makes articles searchable, findable. It kind of archives, as Thomas said, for the future. So just, Thomas, talk about this, and just to make sure, this is a traditional way, I mean, scientific results are publishing in a journal. So you are, and you will become a scientist, so you have your manuscript, you have finished your manuscript in your case, so you submit it to journals, it is taken in charge by an editor who is sending it to several people who are making peer review, this is a peer reviewers, so they are giving back to the editors the evaluation, and based on this evaluation, he can validate and accept the paper which is published in journals and in the community. So who already, so you are at this stage waiting for the peer reviewers?
Third round.
Third round. What about PhD students? Have you already submitted papers? Not yet. What about you? Already published? Excellent. What about you? No. So at what stage are you? Are you writing the manuscript currently, or just?
Okay, I'm actually like waiting for some results, but it's not working. My experiments still just doing some tests. It doesn't finish. That's it.
Me too. I'm still working with the experiments and didn't finish yet, so it's not the moment.
I'm analyzing my result.
So analyzing or writing your paper? It's both?
Analyzing my result still.
Okay. So and it's clear then what you will have to do. It's you are analyzing, and then it's clear in your mind that you will write a manuscript and send it to a journal.
Yes.
For evaluation.
Yes.
So it's a very important step here, because this step here between the editor and the reviewers, it's what we call the gatekeeping. Okay, so it's the idea that you cannot just publish anything. You cannot publish crap science. Normally, theoretically, you have to publish only sound science. You have to publish only science that is okay, that respects a number of different values. Okay, and this respect is evaluated by the editor and by the reviewers. So these guys, they are there to ensure that what you are going to publish is good science. And when we have experience in publication, even if we think that we are good scientists, etc., etc., we always have things here to correct when we try to publish. Yeah.
How many peer
Okay, so how many peer reviewers there is usually for the evaluation of a journal? It depends on the quality of the journal, and it depends on the quality of the editorial process. But a very common feature is 2 reviewers. This is very common, okay? But it can be really more than that. And in some cases, which are not very good, it can be less than that. Sometimes you only have 1 reviewer. and sometimes you are not evaluated at all. But this is not frequent, okay? And sometimes what can happen is that the editor, he tries to invite reviewers for a specific paper, but he fails to find reviewers who accept to make the report, okay? So maybe he can send 10 invitations to 10 different reviewers, but the reviewers, they all say, okay, no, I'm not an expert in this field, I don't feel comfortable with this article, I have no time to make this evaluation, etc., etc. It can be very difficult for an editor to find some reviewers in certain cases. And in these specific cases, where there are difficulties to find reviewers, you can end up with only one reviewer, for instance, which is not very good for the evaluation of the science, of course. The more you have reviewers, and the better is the evaluation, normally.
What can happen also is you are an editor, you are sending it to 2 reviewers, and one of them saying it's great, it's good, you can go ahead, accept the paper for publication. And you have a second reviewer saying, no, it's bad science. Don't trust it, I mean, it's just fake, it's just crap. So what you will do as an editor, what most editors are doing, they are sending it to another reviewers to have a third evaluation to make, to have an idea of where the balance is going. Is that the third reviewer is saying that it's good science or bad science? So it's really a dynamic process where the editors, before taking an editorial decision on the manuscript, is relying on peer reviewing.
What will happen if the second group peer reviewers say good, but the first one say no, it's not good? What's going to happen?
It's the editor usually that makes the decision. He can consider that the reviewer saying it's good science, it's worth. He agrees or she agrees with the idea this is good science because he has his own evaluation, or he can rely on the other one saying no, there are pitfalls, there are faults, it's not good science, so he can reject the paper or ask people to make revision. So do you think, sorry.
No, it's just to say that this is a very important point. In fact, the editorial decision is not taken by the reviewer, okay? No. It is taken by the editor. So it means that if there is an heterogeneity in the feeling of the reviewers, it's not necessarily a problem because the editor may make a synthesis in his mind so that even if one is positive and the other is negative, he can take a decision, the editor, even in that case. So it supposes that the editor has an expertise in the field also. So in the very good journals, you have a lot of editors that are very good experts on the domains, on the scope of the journals. And this is important to have very good editors. But this is a very important fact because we will try to discuss a bit about that in new models of peer reviewing, sometimes you don't have any editor. You just have the scientist, the author, the manuscript, and the reviewers, and there is no intermediate between the paper and the reviewer. And this can be a problem because of these situations where the reviewers are not all okay with each other, they do not agree with each other. And in that case, the fact of not having an editor can be a difficulty.
So you already published many papers? Or
Denis, you have to speak in the microphone.
No, he's older than he looks. So you have a position, permanent position. Okay, that's correct. So and keep in mind also that's a dynamic process. When there are reviewers, the decision is not I reject the paper or I accept the papers. Most of the time you can have like several rounds of evaluation. So you have a first evaluation, a decision saying, okay, you have to make some revision, you have to make some modification before acceptation. And then so the author make modification of the manuscript, submit a revised version. So the editors take it in charge, can send it again to reviewers for evaluation, and then take the decision to reject or accept the paper.
Yeah, so basically there are three kinds of decision by an editor. He can accept the paper, he can reject the paper, or he can ask for revision. Okay, these are the three decisions that an editor can make. Okay, and yeah, do you have any idea of the date of the first scientific journal? Do you know when it first occurred in the history of humanity? Do you think it was during the 20th century, during the 19th century, during the antiquity? Do you have any idea of when it happened? No? The researchers with experience, do you know when it occurred for the first time? You don't have any idea?
A guess, but no idea.
So what is your guess?
I would have said it is come from England.
England,
Yeah.
but when?
I would say maybe the 18th
18th
century.
century.
Or the end.
So who think it was before the 18th century? 1, 2, 3, 16th century.
16th
Okay,
century.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that if we make a vote, the median will be absolutely perfect. In fact, the first scientific article was published in a journal that was called the Journal des Savants. So it was a French journal, and it was published. So it's on the left here, and it was published in 1665. During the 17th century. So it was a publication made in Paris, okay? And it was quite interesting for the scientists. So for instance, the Royal Academy of Science in England, they said, okay, this is a very interesting model, so let's do the same. And they invented, on the right, the philosophical transaction of the Royal Society. And they published their first number something like 3 months later. So the first one was Journal des Savants, and 3 months later it was the first number of the philosophical transaction of the Royal Society.
But Thomas, I have a question. Do they peer-review the paper at the beginning?
No, not at all. Peer review is a very recent invention, okay? It was not at all made for peer reviewing, and it was just for communicating results of science. And it was not only science. For instance, in the Journal des Savants, you also had things about literature and poetry and this kind of thing. It was not just science, which is quite interesting. And a very interesting thing is that the philosophical transactions, the journal on the right, it still exists today. It still exists, and it's a very important journal in biology. At least in biology, but maybe in other disciplines, I don't know. But for instance, with Denis, we had the great chance to publish an article in this journal, and we are very proud of it, because it's a journal of several centuries. And the Journal des Savants, it still exists, but it was interrupted several times during its history. And it's quite funny. So yes, as Denis said, at that time, there was no peer review. It did not exist. So this was the ancestry of the journals, and today the journals, they are more complicated. Okay, it's more things like that. It's on the internet, most often. Most often you don't have publications in paper, okay? Less and less the journals are published in paper. They are printed in paper, less and less like that. And more they are just present only on the internet. And this can be a good thing because it allows you to have, for instance, hyperlinks between articles, between the reference and the articles, between the data of the article and the data of other articles, etc., etc. So all these arrows here, for instance, are links that you can do between your article that you just published and some other items that you can find on the internet, data, supplementary material, figures, references, etc., etc. So the quality of the publications has really changed. It is not at all the same today than it was before. Okay, It's very, very different, and mostly because of the internet.
Thomas, a few more words about peer evaluation. What about your last publication, for example? How many reviewers did you have? 2. And the reviewers, I mean, the reviews were nice? Did you find helpful or not?
They are not always nice, but they are always helpful.
And did you revise your manuscript?
Always.
Always.
Yeah, I never have a free pass on one paper.
Same for me. I don't know, Jacques.
I know one person that have one time in her life a free pass.
What do you mean a free pass,
perfect.
meaning it was accepted directly without
Directly accepted
making
with any
modifications?
correction.
So that's really important because that's the rules. I mean, just to give you an idea, when you submit a paper, you expect, as Thomas said, it could be accepted, we can ask you revision, or it can be rejected. But for the first time, the first evaluation round, and usually it ends up with revision or rejection. That's really important. One important stuff also is, as Thomas said, the peer reviewing is recent. It's not like old, it's not an old-fashioned way for publishing, before publishing papers. At the beginning, the scientists just say, okay, here is my publication, here is my works, and he was sending out for publication. And not all researchers accept the reviewing process. I mean, at the beginning, we have, I don't know if you remind this, it was Albert Einstein.
Look. I have it here. So it's an anecdote about Albert Einstein. So he sent one of his very, very, very famous and important paper to one of the journals in physics. And the editor of the journal, he sent the article for peer review to peer reviewers to make an evaluation of the article of Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein was not happy at all with this idea. So he sent this message to the editor. We had sent you a manuscript for publication and had not authorized you to show it to specialists before it is printed. So I see no reason to address the, in any case, erroneous comments of your anonymous expert. On the basis of this incident, I prefer to publish the paper elsewhere. So he removed the article from the submission, and he tried to publish it elsewhere. So what is very interesting here is that, okay, Albert Einstein is Albert Einstein, okay, but he was wrong, because the expert, we have found his expertise, we have found the report, and he was right. And in fact, Albert Einstein, when he resubmitted his paper to the other journal, he took into account the expertise of the first reviewer. And this is quite funny, because finally he intellectually accepted completely the peer reviewing process, but he didn't want to say it. So he removed the article and submitted it elsewhere. So it's very funny. So it was in 36, okay? So it means that it was the very, very, very beginning of the peer reviewing process. And for instance, in Nature, which is a very famous journal, okay, in which everybody wants to publish, etc., the peer reviewing process is also very recent. It's something like in the 60s that it appeared. So before you could have some peer reviewing process happening in Nature, but it was not systematic. It was not always the case that the editor would send the article to peer review. Okay, so it's very, very recent.
And there is still a lot of criticism against the peer reviewing, Thomas.
Yeah, and this criticism or this one, the idea is that, okay, peer reviewing is fundamental because it allows to make good science, okay, but there are criticisms which are real and logic. The criticism is the fact that the report that are made by the reviewers, they are reviewer dependent. They depend on the reviewers, for sure. So if you send the article to 2 reviewers and then you send to a third reviewer, probably the third reviewer will not agree with the 2 first, and if you send it to a 4th one, he would not agree with the 3 first ones, etc., etc. So it's extremely reviewer dependent. It is extremely time dependent also. It's just the ID of a reviewer at a given time, and it's not absolute. Most often, the peer reviewing process is opaque. It means that nothing is published. The editorial decisions are not published. They are not publicly available in the journals. The peer reviews are not public. They are not published. Okay? So this is not transparent. Most often, the reader of an article doesn't know what was the editorial process. He doesn't know what were the reviews, if it was positively evaluated, etc., etc. Nothing is public. Okay? This is starting to change, but most often the process is opaque. It can be redundant. We have not spoken about that yet, but there is a very important thing in the publication process is that you try to publish in Science, this very famous journal called Science. So you send your article to Science, the editor will send your article to peer review, he will invite peer reviewers who will make some reports, and then the editor will reject your paper because he considers that it is not okay. Then you take your paper back and you submit it to Nature because it's a very important journal. And then it goes back to peer review with another editor, and then it is again rejected. And then you get back your paper and you try to publish it in the philosophical transaction of the Royal Society. And it is rejected again and again. And you can have like that submissions and rejections in cascade. And in this process of cascade, the peer review process is highly redundant because you can end up with 20 different reviewers who have evaluated your article, but they do not know each other what was the evaluation of the other reviewer. So it's redundant and it's not ameliorating through times, and the reviewers, they cannot use the reports of the other reviewers, etc., etc. So it's not efficient at all. Okay, there is a very big problem of efficiency in the evaluation process. And it can be sterile because in some cases, the criticism, they are just huge criticisms with no will to try to improve your paper. So in some cases, the reviews, they are just not useful at all because they are just destroying your paper, and that's all. Okay? It's like a judgment that is not positive at all and that cannot be used to improve the quality of your paper. So in some cases, it's not efficient and it's sterile.
What about you? Have you experienced where you find the reviewers were not fair? I mean, like it was not...
Sometimes you think that he not even read the paper.
That's the worst case, yeah.
It's happened sometimes, but most of the time it's positive. I think it's rare to have this kind of cases, or the reviewer don't read it, or it's don't understand it at all, or say things like it's crap because I say it's crap. That is very rare. Most of the time, in my experience, it's positive. But there is also something that I think it's quite strange, is to have an old community when we teach to all the young scientists, you will be rejected, and don't expect to not be. And I think we are all tendency to reject papers, even for small details. So now it's, if you say, I read a paper, it's nice, make a review, it's nice, I say, okay. People will say, directly? It's strange. Why you don't make criticize? So we have to make criticize when you are a reviewer, even if sometimes it's only because it's not right like you will write it. And I think it's quite, it's another of criticism of peer reviewing.
It's not an easy step. When you will do that probably if you become scientist and you will evaluate paper. Is, as he said, at what level, at what is the threshold, the numbers of criticism you say, okay, it's not acceptable. Because every paper can be criticized. There is no perfect paper. So it's hard for an editor to decide at which level he say, no, it's not good enough for publication. And it also depends on the journals. Some journals are, you expect very high quality and you say, okay, unless it is very new, unless it is almost perfect, I will accept it for publication. In some other journals, they can be more, I mean, like relaxed or less exigent, demanding, and say, okay, that's not perfect, but good enough for publication.
I see on social networks the scientists stating something interesting, saying that you always have to accept it with conditions. Because if you say, I reject it, the scientist will take the same paper exactly and submit it elsewhere. Yep. So, but if you say, I accept it with corrections, he have to do the corrections before publishing in the paper. So he says that always accept it with conditions and never reject it. And I think that this way of seeing it, it's interesting.
But what can happen then, if you're an author, somebody say, okay, I would be happy to accept your paper, but you have to make revision. You say, no, I disagree, so you just cancel your submission and you submit your paper elsewhere. Just saying, okay, that's one way. We didn't tell this also. Do you think reviewers, they have to sign their review to be not anonymous, or they can be anonymous? Any ideas about this?
I give you a clue. Look at the figure. Do you think they are anonymous or not? Yeah. So usually they are anonymous.
But do you think they are always anonymous or not? For example, okay, I'm an editor at Evolution, for example. I send your paper, I send in a paper. So Thomas is submitting a paper to my journals. So I'm an editor, I'm taking the paper in charge, and for example, I'm asking you to review the paper. Can you decide to say, okay, I sign? I say, okay, at the end you reveal your name, you put your name on the reviews, or can you just say, okay, you must be anonymous or not? It must be anonymous. Other ideas? For all journals or for?
For all journals. For me, I don't know.
No ideas? So Thomas?
Yeah, so the most frequent situation is that the reviewers are anonymous and they have to be anonymous. Okay, this is the most frequent. But there are some cases in which the reviewers, they want to sign their reviews, and in some cases they sign their reviews. So if it's okay with the journal, it can happen. Okay. So this is the difference between blind peer review and non-blind peer review. Okay. And there is another kind of blindness. It is the fact that the author can be anonymous. Okay. So when you submit your article, you can say, okay, this is Thomas Guillemot, I submit my article, and the editor will know that it is Thomas Guillemot who submitted the article, and the reviewers will know that it is Thomas Guillemot. And this can have an impact on the judgment of the editor and of the reviewer. For instance, if you evaluate as a reviewer an article of Einstein, you may be somewhat impacted by the fact that it is Einstein, okay? But if you don't know...
You expect it is good science.
Yeah, you expect it will be very good. But if you don't know that it is Albert Einstein, then you may be maybe harder, or you may have more critics to express, etc., etc. So there are more and more journals that allows the author to make anonymous submission. And it can be on the interest, it can be at the advantage of the author to be anonymous, because when you are a very young scientist, not well known in the domain, when you belong to a laboratory that is not well known in the domain, etc., etc., maybe it's better to be anonymous when you submit your paper. And at the contrary, when you are a very superstar working in one of the most excellent laboratory in the world, maybe it's not at your advantage to be anonymous. So it depends. And more journals, they want you to be anonymous. For instance, in American Naturalist, which is a very famous journal in ecology and in evolution, I think that now they make the double-blind evaluation process obligatory and mandatory.
Because it's double-blind because there is the author
are anonymous and the reviewers
are anonymous.
So this is called the double-blind evaluation process. So it can be single-blinded because the reviewers are anonymous, or double-blinded because the authors are also anonymous.
The idea is to be as fair as possible in the evaluation process. What about you? Did you already submitted paper double-blind or?
I never submitted blindly for myself. As reviewer, my 2 last papers I review, my name was published with the paper. So the paper, when it has been accepted, on the website you have the paper and you have the name of all 3 reviewers, enfin the 2 reviewers and the editor of this paper.
Yeah.
So you can see the last 2 papers I review, but it was after publication.
Mm-hmm.
And what about your last reviews? Did you sign them or did you remain anonymous?
I don't think I have the option, the explicit option to sign it. I think I didn't see that I could sign it. I see that it will be published, if the paper is accepted, my name will be published with it.
Yep.
But I don't remember seeing but maybe I miss it.
Okay, so if we go back to this scheme, to the figure on the top, can you tell me who are the guys here who are paid for the job they do? Do you think, for instance, that the editor is paid by the journal? Do you think that the reviewers, they are paid by the journal? Do you have any idea about that? Both of them are paid by the journal? Okay, so this is a very optimistic view, but why not? So I say it is a very optimistic view because the most frequent situation is that the editor and the reviewers, they are not paid for the work they do, okay? And in fact, they are not employed by the journal. And this is here what I call by internal and external. In fact, the editor is part of what we call the editorial board of the journal, okay? So each journal has an editorial board. But the editorial board of most journals are said to be external. It means that this editorial board do not belong really to the journal, okay? So you have a journal with an editorial manager, with some people making advertisement, marketing, blah, blah, etc., etc. And then outside the journal, in a different office, somewhere else, you have an editorial board with an editor-in-chief and some editors, okay? And this editorial board are external because they do not belong to the company of the journal, okay? So for instance, Journal of Evolutionary Biology, it belongs to a company that is called Wiley, okay? This is the name of the company. But the editorial board of Journal of Evolutionary Biology is not at all employed by Wiley. It is something else. It is a group of scientists working for science, and just for science, not for money, to make the evaluation of the articles received by Journal of Evolutionary Biology. And this is called an external editorial board, okay? And the reviewers, it's even worse because the reviewers are just outside. They are not editors. They do not have their names in the journal. They are just external scientists that may be expert in the domain of the article that is submitted. That's all. Denis can be a reviewer for any journal. Jacques can be a reviewer for any journal, and me also, etc. And you can be a reviewer for any journal without belonging to this journal. And there are some very few exceptions in which the editorial boards are internal. It means that they are within the company of the journal. They are paid by the journal. For instance, in Nature, the journal Nature, they have internal editorial board. The journal Science, also, they have internal editorial board. But this is very, very specific.
What about the scientist? Do the journal pay money for? Do they give money for the scientists to
For the
publish
authors?
their-
For the authors?
Yeah, for the author. For example, you're on the way to publish something. You will receive money from the journal for that?
No. You do? Yeah. You are paid when you try to publish an article in a scientific journal?
When you publish like an article, like a paper, you get paid for it.
In which kind of journal?
I don't know, but I have some friends who have been paid.
Mm-hmm. Is it scientific journals or
Yeah.
is it a book?
No, scientific journals.
Scientific journals.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because this is really rare. I mean, like, if you are publishing a book, for example, you are writing a book, you are trying to publish it, do you receive money for that? I guess you are a writer, it could be a job, so you are writing books, you are sending books for publishing, and so the publisher of your book is giving you money. That's normal. So actually, when you are a scientist, when you are an author, if you publish your paper, you are not receiving money.
And this is in what we call the academic journals. There are some scientific journals for large audience, which is vulgarization, which is popular science and this kind of thing, where the authors are paid. Okay, but if you publish in the Philosophical Transaction of the Royal Society, in Journal of Evolutionary Biology, in American Naturalist, in Nature, in Science, etc., you are not paid as an author.
And do you think it's okay? So you are not paid, but just saying thank you, and that's nice for submitting your paper. We will publish your paper, and that's fine. It's just thank you, or just it's just free for. They just publish like that your paper, and that's fine. No charge, no.
Think of the worst scenario.
Yeah, try to think the worst situation.
Scenario, and it's a real one.
Yeah.
So he's giving the cues. Actually, you are paying for publishing. Hmm?
Sometimes you have to pay.
It's not sometime, unfortunately. It's most or almost all the time you have to pay for publishing. So not necessarily you have to pay, because sometimes you cannot pay, but in that case your paper won't be available, for free on the internet. But if you want your paper to be published for free on the internet, no way. You have to pay. So is it like you have to pay like 10 euros or 100 euros, or you have to pay more? Think about the worst case.
I think it depends about the journal.
Clearly, yes.
Yep. Depends.
So what you will say in average is like 100 euro, you are paying 100 euro to the journal to put it online, or?
I have no idea about that.
€25, €30 for page.
Welcome to the real world of publication.
And but I think it's quite nice. Because we are supposed to publish them, and in my country, almost all the research is funded by the government. So it's our obligation to show what we did and to show to people that we are producing something that can be benefit for them.
Yeah.
So in that case, I understand that why we're not paid. Especially for those magazines that are available for everyone. It's not as Nature, for example. So yeah, it's sad, but I understand why.
Just to indicate you one of the worst scenarios, have you an idea about how you must pay for publishing in Nature Communication, for example?
No.
So Nature Communication is like a baby Nature journal, okay? So it belongs to Nature Macmillan Publishing Group, but it's not really Nature, okay? It's not exactly the same. And it is only online, an online journal, okay? There is no printed version, so it's just internet-based. Nature Communications. Do we have an idea of a price of an article in Nature Communication for an author?
5,000 euros.
Yeah, so it's quite expensive.
one publication, like 2 or 3 pages, depending. So you have all the process. You have submitting your paper, it is evaluating, you have second round, so it is accepted for publication, and then Nature Communication is asking you, okay, no problem, it is accepted for publication. Now, if you want us to publish your paper, it's 5,000 euros. Of course, it is not you, it will be your institution, your laboratory that will pay. It's not the authors themselves. But still, I mean, it's part of the money the government, for example, is giving you for making your research. You will take 5,000 euros, giving it to Nature Communication for having your publication published.
So it's the basic equivalent of 5 months of a PhD thesis, okay? Approximately. Of a PhD fellowship, 5 months, okay? To publish in Nature Communication. So it's quite sympathetic. And this is the new model of open science in which you have to pay. It's open science because the article is available for everybody. Everybody can read your article for free. Okay, this is very important. This is open science. This is open access. Okay, this is what we call that, open access. And in the ancient system, the articles were in printed journals that were available in libraries. And it was in libraries because the library paid subscriptions. Okay, so before, the libraries, the institutions, Montpellier, Supagro, etc., they paid subscriptions to get the journals printed in their library. And you could go to the library to read the articles. This was the ancient system. And now more and more, we do not pay anymore the subscriptions, but the authors will pay more and more frequently to have their article online in open access for everybody. Okay, so we move from a system of subscription-paid journals to open access, where you pay article processes charges, the 5,000 euros Denis told about. These are article processing charges. So subscriptions to article processing charges. Okay.
For example, for your project, you will have, you will have to find papers. How you will do that? You will just go on the internet and it's available, or how you will make find your references? Any ideas about that? You already started this? Yep.
I use databases from my home university in the US, so they pay for subscriptions. Yes, yeah.
Similar.
All of you have a login and password for having access? No. So how do you do it? You go to Google Scholar.
And all the articles are available on Google Scholar?
No, most of them is available, but some of them just the abstract. We have to subscribe.
So what do you do when you have all these abstracts?
Nothing.
You use Sci-Hub. It's very bad. It's very bad.
Yeah, so you use Sci-Hub. So do you know how it works, Sci-Hub? How it comes from?
Everybody, first of all, everybody knows Sci-Hub or not?
No.
Are you using Sci-Hub? Guess so, yes.
But some do not know what is Sci-Hub.
So who doesn't know Sci-Hub? 1, 2, 3, yeah.
Okay, so it's a pirate website, so it's illegal, okay? And it comes from a young lady working in Kazakhstan, and she was working in
I don't remember.
In what?
In physics, kind of?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
She's very good at web thing, okay? And she developed a website which is called Sci-Hub, okay, Sci like science, and then hub, like a hub, dash hub. And it's a website on which there is a search bar on which you can put a title of an article, you can put some keywords, you can put a DOI, and then spunk, you have the article for free, okay? So it is highly illegal, okay? She has a lot of problem with the justice of many countries.
She's sued by every publisher.
Yeah. And in France, we recently had something happening, which is the justice in France said to the internet providers to forbid the access to Sci-Hub, for instance, using Free or using Orange or using these French providers. So if you want to use Sci-Hub now, you can do that using the network, for instance, of Montpellier Supagro. There is no problem, but it is illegal, okay? Because it doesn't go through internet providers. It's Renater, it's different. You can do that from the CNRS, from the universities, and if you want to do that from your home, it's completely illegal, but you can do that with Tor. You know Tor? Okay. It's very efficient, it works, but it's very illegal. You don't have to do that. Okay, so it's a way to get for free the articles without paying anything. So you don't pay the access because some guys gave their password and their login name of their libraries and etc. to the girl of Sci-Hub. So they are available.
For the funny story is like when we are making talk about open science and when we are asking people how do they find PDF, I mean the papers, even if they have a login, I mean an institutional login, most of them say we are not using our institutional login, we are using Sci-Hub because it's faster.
Yeah, it's simpler, it's faster. So
I don't know about you, are you using the Montpellier Supagro or what? Ah, okay, that's okay.
It's online on YouTube.
Just make a little sign.
Only in some precise cases.
Yeah.
When I can't find in any of my different logins and access a legal way.
Actually, I tend to be exactly the same, but I know that most people are not using at all. I mean, they're institutional login.
So it's very bad. We shouldn't use Sci-Hub, okay? It's very, very bad. It's illegal, etc., etc. However, so there is a very interesting movie on that point, which is called Paywall the Movie. Okay, if you want to look at Google, Paywall the Movie. It's a movie, it's like a documentary of 1 hour long about this problem of the economics of journals, subscriptions, open access, etc. It's very interesting, and there is a focus on Sci-Hub and on the young lady at the origin of Sci-Hub. So Paywall the Movie. This is an advice. Just to go back to this open access stuff and the fact that you are paying to publish, this is what I wrote here, okay? We tend to think that it is a vicious system because if you want to publish an article, you have to pay. You pay a publisher to publish your article. And the publisher is happy when he receives money from you, okay? Because this is its turnover. Okay? And you are happy when you publish because you are evaluated on the number of articles you publish each year. So you have an interest in publishing a lot, and the publisher has an interest in publishing a lot. So everybody has an interest in publishing a lot. And this can lead to a situation where the articles are published even if the quality is not present. Okay, and this is why we say it is vicious, because there is a conjunction of interest between the researchers and the publisher. Everybody wants to publish, so there is a kind of snowball effect that may decrease the quality of the overall quality of the papers that are published in journals. Okay, you see this kind of problem? Yeah, it's quite logical. And these are just some figures about the market of publications. Okay, worldwide, in the whole world, if you try to sum up all the revenues of all the companies making scientific publications, you reach a number of about 9 billion euros. Okay, so this is the cost of publication in the world, of scientific publication. And there are approximately 3 million articles that are published each year. Okay? So it makes an average of 3,000 euros per article, which is not very far from the article processing charges that we have to pay when we want to publish. Okay, so a market of 9 billion euros and about 3 million articles. These are the big figures. Okay, there are a few very, very big companies of publication in the world. For instance, Springer. You may have heard of Springer. There is Elsevier, which is the biggest one, Elsevier. And there are other ones like Wiley, like Thomson Reuters, etc., etc. But a very few ones, 6 of them, are making something like 40% of the market. And this is just 6 of the publishers. This is the turnover through time. Okay, so the turnover is increasing. So it's a good market. It's $9 billion and euros, excuse me, and it's increasing year after year.
And how they make money? So we discussed about this. They are making money for subscription. For example, Montpellier Supagro is paying, or university. I don't know to which university are belonging. Wisconsin-Madison. Have you an idea about how they pay for subscription to journals? Probably millions, probably 1 or 2 millions, that's the average. So universities are paying for having login, password for their researchers, students to have access to PDF. So this is the money they are making for subscription. And as we said before, they are not making only money with subscription. They are making money by the author paying article processing charge to have their paper in open science on the web. So they are making, and in a way, it's very bizarre because sometimes we are paying twice. Actually, we are paying for subscription, but we are paying for publishing. And this is how they make a lot of money.
This is what we call the hybrid system. So the hybrid system is the worst situation that you can imagine. So you pay the subscription and you pay the article processing charges. So this in France costs about 120 million euros, which is a big number because I don't know if you know the Agence Nationale de la Recherche. Do you know that? The Research National Agency. It's a French agency that gives money to scientists to make research. Okay? That funds the research in France. And the budget of the National Research Agency in France is about 500 million euro. Okay, 500 million euro. And the cost of publication is more than 100 million euro. So it means that 20% of the budget of the National Research Agency in France can go to the publication. Okay, 20%, a fourth. Or fifth. It's a large number, okay? It's not negligible. This is also an interesting figure. An interesting figure. Look on the left. I will take the microphone. On the left, you have here some companies of publication: Elsevier, Springer Nature, Wolters Kluwer, Wiley, Thomson Reuters, Informa. Okay. And each time you have 2 bars. The green bar is the turnover. So it means the amount of money they make a year. So for instance, Elsevier almost makes 3 billion euros per year. Okay, this is the turnover of Elsevier. 3 billion euros. Okay? And Springer Nature is like 1 billion. Okay? And in orange here, you have the profit margin. So the money that when you accept all the costs, etc., the money that remains at the end of the year, it's about 1 billion for Elsevier. So approximately a third of the turnover makes the margin. Okay? So in average, over all these companies, the mean profit margin is about 40%. Okay? And this is what they do with the profit margin. So what they do with that? In blue, you have the investment for instance, for technological development, to improve their website, etc., etc. So this is in blue, so it's a small part of the margin, and it's stable through time, okay? And in red, you have the big part of the margin, which is returns to shareholders. And this part is the largest part of the margin, and it increases through times a lot, okay? So the guys, they are doing a 40% profit margin, and the majority, the vast majority of this profit margin is returns to shareholder. So this is very important because it's completely uncommon. It's completely fantastic and extraordinary. If you compare that with what happens in the normal industry, okay, it does not exist. So this is Elsevier with the 40% profit margin. And this is Walmart. Walmart is the first food supplier, etc., in the world, okay? And the profit margin is about 4%, okay? And it is the leader in the world. If you take Toyota, who is not very far from being a leader in car selling, okay, it's like 11%, okay? And again, Elsevier, but it's the same for Macmillan Publishing Group, it's the same for Volker Kleuters, it's the same for Springer Nature, etc., etc. It's about 40%. So it's completely bizarre, in fact, okay? And there is something very, very important. It is all the money that is made by the publishers. Do you know the origin of this money? Do you know where it comes from? So researchers, subscriptions. So this is not the exact origin. What is the origin? Before being in the pocket of the researcher, or before being in the pocket of the libraries, where does it come from? The universities? Governmental fundings. And where does come from the governmental fundings? From taxpayers. So in fact, you are paying, when you pay the TVA, you know the TVA, okay? When you pay your taxes on the revenue, etc., you pay for the profit margin of Elsevier, which is quite funny. So it's quite funny because the taxpayers pay for their margin, which are absolutely amazing, okay? They are not normal at all. They are completely bizarre. The authors are not paid. The editors are not paid. The reviewers are not paid. Nobody is paid, and you pay for them, okay? And then sometimes you add the fact that you must pay to be able to read the article, okay? So it's a fantastic system, in fact. So it's a very fantastic system, and there is a super article on the rise of this market that was published in The Guardian a year ago, something like that, about Robert Maxwell, who is the inventor of this publication system, of this market. So if you go to The Guardian, to the journal, the British journal, The Guardian, and you take, it's a long read article about Robert Maxwell and the publication system, read it, it's fantastic. And it explains in the very detail all this stuff. And it's very, very interesting. Okay. So it's funny because researchers, they do almost everything. We write the article, we evaluate the article, we edit the article, we proofread the article, sometimes we format the articles, and we are not paid for that. And there is this huge amount of money that is made by the publishers. So some of the researchers, and we are part of this, we want to reappropriate the publication system to the scientists, to the scientific societies, etc., etc. This is what we try to do with peer community in this guy here, that we will present maybe in some minutes. So this is just to tell you that the publication process is something that has a future. Okay, there is a large increase in the number of journals through time, and it still continues to increase. So more and more journals, more and more published articles. It doesn't stop, okay? There is a bubble, but it still continues to increase with a 3 to 6% growth. this is the same thing. So the problem is not so much that there is a profit. The problem is the accumulation of revenue. There is no price regulation. There is a total dependence of the reader, and there can be a lack of access when you have to pay to have access to journals, when there are paywalls. There is a total dependence on the authors upon the journals because of this publish or perish situation in which the scientists have to publish for their evaluation. And then it's a problem because the research and the educations of the countries, they do pay to make this profit. And if we did not pay, for instance, in France, this 120 million euro, it would represent something like an increase in the national budget for research of about 20%, okay, which is enormous. Yeah. So, what do? We make a pause, Denis, or we just continue? We continue, or you want to drink a coffee and to make a pause? What do you think? A pause? 10 minutes, okay? Jack, c'est bon? Allez, 10 minutes pause. very bizarre also. It is the lack of concurrency between the journals. In a normal market, for instance, if you cars and selling cars, once you have bought one car, you don't want to buy a second car or a third car, a fourth car. You just need one car. So you put in competition all the brands of cars, Renault, Peugeot, BMW, etc., and you choose the best one. So you put in concurrence all the manufacturers of cars and you choose one. But with journals, it's completely different. If you are a library and you pay subscriptions to journals, you want the Journal of Astrophysics. This one you want it because you have astrophysicians working in university. But you want also the new Journal of Astrophysics because it's very important. There are articles published in it. And you want the International Journal of Astrophysics. You also want this one. In fact, you want all the journals in astrophysics, okay? You don't want to choose the best one. You want all the journals. So you are going to pay subscriptions for all the journals. And if there is a new journal, a new international from Russia Journal of Astrophysics, you will also subscribe to it, and again, and again, and again. So there is no concurrency between journals. There is no competition. So it's a very specific market, completely bizarre, again. And this participates to the fact that the turnover is fantastic and the margins are fantastic. This is because of this lack of concurrency. Yeah, so we wanted to speak a bit about open access. So we already gave you some elements about open access. Open access is plenty of very good things. It's very good to publish in open access because it makes your articles available for free for everybody. So you don't need to use Sci-Hub to read articles that are in open access. They are in open access, so they can be freely read by everybody, which is very good, mostly for laboratories and libraries or universities from poor countries that do not have money to pay for the subscriptions. And this is very important, okay? So at the beginning, in the 90s, at the end of the 90s, the idea to develop the open access was for that, for this purpose. For this goal, it was to make the science available for everybody for free, for Africa, for Asia, etc., etc. Okay, and this was very important. And then there was other advantages. For instance, when you publish in open access, there is more exposure to your work. So your work will be more read, more cited, more used by other scientists, which is good. Okay. The practitioners, they can read your article for free also, so they can apply your findings. It will increase your citation rate, which is good for the evaluation of researchers. You can influence politics, okay? So the guys in the ministries, for instance, they can read your articles and they can use it. The public can access to it. It can be compliant with grant rules of some national research founders. The taxpayers, you can be happy because the research that has been paid with your tax is available for everybody, which is a good thing also. And most of all, the researchers in developing countries, they can see your work without paying, and this is very, very, very important. And this is why, for instance, the first journal in open access was created, the first big one, okay, which was PLOS, Public Library of Science journal, was created in the beginning of the 2000s. It was for that, and mainly for making the research available by developing countries. And there are different kinds of models of open access. These are the three main models. You will heard, very probably in your career, about green open access, gold open access, and sometimes diamond open access. So these are three different ways to publish in open access. What we have talked about until now is the gold open access. This is when the publisher put the article on internet in open access. So this is the gold open access. For instance, if you publish in PLOS, if you publish an article in PLOS, the article you will have published will be open access on the internet because PLOS make it available on the internet. Okay? And sometimes you have to pay article processing charges. For instance, for PLOS, it's about 2,000 euros. And sometimes you do not have to pay. There are many journals working in gold open access in which you don't pay, in which you do not pay a cent. But the problem is that these journals are not very well known. They are small journals that people do not use, etc., etc. Okay? So most frequently, you will pay to publish in gold open access to get open access copy of your article on the internet. Okay, this is clear? There is a second way to publish in open access, which is the green open access. So in this case, for instance, you publish an article in Nature, okay? And Nature is a paywall journal. It means that if you want to read an article that is published in Nature, you have to pay to read it, okay? Or you have to go to a library who has a subscription to Nature. So it is not open access at all. But what you can do, you, as an author of this article, you can put a copy of your article on an open access repository, on a web server in which everybody can have a look to your article. Okay? So you can put a copy of your own article on an open web server. This is what we call the green open access. So you have to be very, very careful because when you do that, most of the time you are against the law, okay? It is not legal, and in some specific case it can be legal, but you have to wait for a certain amount of time. This is what we call an embargo period, okay? So for instance, you publish in Nature, and 6 months later, you have the authorization to put a copy of your article in a personal website. But you have to wait 6 months. It depends on the country. Okay? For instance, in France, it's about 6 months. Okay? So this is what we call the green open access, where the authors deposit an open access copy of the article in their own website, in the website of Montpellier Supagro, in the website of the University of Montpellier, in the website of Madison University, etc., etc. Okay? So most often you put a copy on what we call an institutional repository, okay, which is the website of the library, in fact. Okay? And the last term is the diamond open access, and this is the best one. Okay? It's these are journals in which nobody pays. So there is no subscriptions, there is no paywall, okay? You can read for free the articles, and the authors, they do not pay to publish in these journals. So it's like a gold open access with no payment, okay? It's the gold without anything to pay. And this is called the diamond open access. Sometimes it's called the two-way open access, okay? And this is the best model for people who do not have a lot of money to pay for science.
Just a question. If you follow Thomas, you say, okay, you as a scientist, we will all use diamond open access. So why not all scientists is using diamond open access? It will be the best. Any ideas why some people are still using gold open access or green open access? Imagine tomorrow you will have a good results, a good publication, and what you will do? You will do to diamond open access, or you will go to gold open access, or?
For instance, in which kind of journal did you try to submit your article? It's open access, and you will have to pay then or not? No? What is this journal? Scientia Agricola. So it's a diamond open access journal. Oh, very good.
And how did you choose that? I mean, that's the supervisors that choose?
I didn't have a word about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think related to your question, many of us were not aware of this problem. And usually when we publish, we want a journal with high impact and also the status. I mean, if you publish Nature, you're God. So
Exactly, yeah.
supposed to have this set of mind.
That was this was the idea of my question. I mean, I'm saying that the system works very well, and we are paying for it, and we are subscribing, paying APC, article processing charge, sometimes 5,000 euros per article. Why we are doing this? Because we are looking for prestige. We want to publish in Science, we want to publish in Nature, because as you said, if you publish in Nature, what? You're good. I mean, you will have access to, you have higher chance to be recruited, I mean, to be hired, or to get funds. So this is why the system is working so well. So actually, a lot of people just aware about, I mean, sometimes people are not aware, but a lot of people are just aware about that. They say, okay, I should use Diamond Open Access. But well, I have good results on, well, it would be so nice to have a publication in Nature. So, and this is why they are submitting papers to journals and they have to pay them for publishing. Remarks? So that's important to keep in mind on how the system works and why it is so difficult to change the system, because people are looking for prestige.
Okay, so I told you that open access is started during the early 2000s, where PLOS was invented about this time, approximately. And it's increasing. There are more and more journals in open access. And these figures, these graphics, are showing, for instance, on the left, the number of articles through times that are in open access. And it's quite interesting because it's steadily increasing, okay? There is a large increase. This is the green open access here, in green. This is the gold open access, in yellow. This is an hybrid system where you both pay a subscription and APCs, okay, article processing charges. And this is unclear, okay? The brown color here is just what we call the bronze open access system, where it is not very clear who pays what, etc., etc. But it is open access. So if you look at the percentage of articles that are published in open access, we are a bit below 50% currently worldwide on every kind of publication, etc., etc. So it's not the majority of the articles that are published in open access. Okay, so Sci-Hub has a great future because it's not finished with paywall journals. This is also another graphics that shows the growth of open access. And what is quite interesting in these graphics here, that shows the evolution through time, is that if you have a look to these colors, the thing that increase the more is the blue color here. And this blue color is the hybrid system. Again, this system in which you both pay for the subscription and you pay again to publish in open access for some articles. So this is the worst system, okay, where you pay twice. You pay subscriptions plus APCs for open access. And this is the kind of open access that increases with a larger increase rate. Okay? And there are some evolutions, and the things are changing. The politics of the publication are changing. For instance, in France, we had some new laws that say that we have to publish in open access. In the United States, there are laws that say that if you have make some research on public funds, then you have to publish in open access. So there are some laws that makes mandatory the fact of publishing in open access more and more in more and more countries. Okay, for instance, in England, in the United States, in France, etc., etc. But this open access most often is with embargoes. It means that with period of time when you can't put your articles in open access, you have to wait for a certain period. Okay. But there are some new laws, some new regulations that will happen very soon. For instance, there is something that is called the Plan S, which is very, very important in Europe, which is the fact that a coalition of national funders and European funders of research all agree with the fact that after 2020, the scientific publications based on research funded by these national funders and European funders, they will have to be published in compliant open access journals or on compliant open access platforms. So it means that it will be mandatory to publish in open access if you receive money from the European Research Council, from the European Commission, and from plenty of national agencies in France. And the 4 foundations here are very important also because, for instance, they include the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is the biggest foundation in the world about science funding, okay? And also the Wellcome Trust Foundation and other big foundations like that. So this is very, very important, and this will change a lot the way publication will occur. And this is just to give you some characteristics of this Plan S. So the researchers, they will be obliged to publish in open access from 2020, okay? There is a very positive thing, is that the authors, they will retain the copyright of their work. This is something that we have not discussed about, but when you publish in Nature, for instance, you lose your copyright. You give your copyright to Nature. Okay, so you lose your intellectual rights on your publication and on your results when you publish in a normal commercial journal. They keep and they take from you your copyright. And this will change with the Plan S and with open access. You will keep you as an author, you will keep your copyright, okay, which is very important. They say, the coalition S, they say that the fees, the article processing charges, will be covered by the national funders or by the European Commission, etc., etc. And the hybrid system will disappear. Okay, it will not be allowed to publish in hybrid journals in which you pay first for the subscription and then you pay a second time for making your article in open access. This will be finished. There will be no more hybrid journals with this system. Yeah, and so this is to go back to the green open access system. So it's just to give you some ideas about the fact that if you want to publish articles on the internet, if you want to make available PDFs or HTML code on the internet, it doesn't cost almost anything, okay? For instance, there is an institutional repository that is called Archive that publishes in mathematics and in physics many papers, okay? They publish each year something like 100,000 articles on the internet in mathematics and in physics mostly. And they have a budget of less than $1 million. And it makes something like $7 per article. So if you want to put a copy of an article on a web server, it costs you less than $10 per article, which is not $5,000 like the article processing charge of Nature Communication, okay? It's not at all the same, okay? So it's very cheap to publish on the internet. If I want to develop a web server to put my article on it, it will cost me less than $10 per article, okay? And there are free tools, free softwares to implement journals. For instance, this OJS, it's Open Journal System. It's a software to make a journal on the internet for free. It doesn't cost anything. It's a free software, very useful to make a journal. And because scientific publishing on the internet is so easy and is so cheap, then there is a huge rise of what we call preprint deposits. Do you have any idea of what is a preprint? No? Have you already heard the name preprint, the word preprint, or never? Quoi? John.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday while I was looking at the PLOS publication guidelines. So I've heard it.
Yeah, okay. And you read the term preprint on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because PLOS has a new policy about preprint, so they try to what they do in fact is that when you submit a paper to PLOS, they put a copy of this article on a preprint server. So a preprint basically is, I think I have a, yeah, a preprint here. It's a copy of your article that belongs to you, that belongs to the author, okay? And that you can put on a specific website, which is called the preprint server, okay? So you are an author, you have written a manuscript, you have written an article here. What you do is that you submit your article to a journal, and at the same time, you deposit a copy of your article on a preprint server. This is called preprint because it is not already printed in a journal. Okay, it is not already published. So this is why we use the term preprint. It's like a working copy. It's like a manuscript in preparation. Yeah.
What is different between manuscript that we put on the online and preprint server? What is different?
So it's almost the same, but a preprint server, it's a web server, a website that is dedicated to receive only articles of authors' manuscripts. So it's a, for instance, archive or bioarchive. They are preprint server. It means that they are websites in which you can find plenty of preprints, but only preprints. You won't find published article, you won't find books, you won't find this kind of thing. You will find only articles that are copies of author manuscripts that are not yet published in journals and that sometimes are submitted in journals, but not always, okay? So for instance, bioarchive, this website, is the preprint server for biology. And it is a website in which you can put your articles for free before they are published in a journal, okay?
Look, for example, you have papers in animal behavior, cognition, biochemistry, ecology. So if you took evolutionary biology, for example, you will see all the paper published in evolutionary biology. So this is the last one, put online yesterday, I guess. So you click on it. So it's completely open. I mean, it's not because we are at Montpellier Supagro with a special login. I mean, you can be in any countries in the world, I mean, in your home, without, you only need an internet connection and you have access to this. So you have all the author, you have the abstract, of course, but look at that, you have the download PDF. And if you click on it, you have access to the PDF of the paper. Look at that. Title, so you know now what is publication, so you have the abstract and introduction. And you see, of course, you will have like material and methods, so the way, and all that stuff. All the figures, I mean, all the article. But you can have a look, it's often like preprints, so the line are numbered, so it's like a manuscript before it is published. Yep, questions? No. You get it? So exactly, this is what authors are more and more doing in biology and many different fields. This is a manuscript ready for submission to a journal, and they put it in this archive. I mean, like archive, bioarchive, also in open repositories. They put the manuscript, so it's available to everybody, and they submit it for publication in a journal. Do you have questions about this? That's really important because this is really a new step-by-step. It's not new in physics, in mathematics because of archive. So this is bioarchive. So the first one was archive, and physicists and mathematicians, they used to put the article like this in open science. So, but step by step, it's becoming the rules. I mean, it's an increasing trend in biology, but not only in biology, like in sociology and. So, and you can see many different fields, and you can find very different open repositories. You can take also, look at Zenodo, for example. It's Zenodo. So this is a repository that has been developed by the European Commission, I mean, at the European level. It's exactly the same. It's all open, and so you have like a paper. So if you click on it, you will have access exactly to the different authors, and you can have also access to the data set and all the PDF, all the paper. So that's really nice.
Yeah. So if we go back to the scheme on the PowerPoint file, yeah, in here. So what an author do is he writes an article. So he has an article in his computer. Poof, he put it on a preprint server like bioarchive. And it's cool because everybody can have access to it and can read it before publication. So they can make some comments, they can make some criticism, they can help you to improve your article. And this is very important because all scientists can have access to it. And at the same time, if you want, you can also submit it to a journal, go through peer reviewing, be rejected, go to another journal, submit it to another journal, be rejected and ask for revision, and then you go to a third journal because your article has been rejected, and etc., etc. It can take years before publication here. But as you have put a copy of your article on the preprint server, your article is available immediately after writing it. Okay? And if you did not do that, if you did not deposit your preprint on a preprint server, then the readers, they would have to wait maybe 2 years before being able to read your article. Okay? So it's a really inefficient system. You see that? It's very important. So you are a PhD student, you are in the 3rd year of PhD, you have to defend your thesis in 2 months, you write an article and you think that the results of your article will be read in 2 years from now. So 2 years after the end of your PhD thesis. It's completely ridiculous. So the idea is to put a preprint copy in a preprint server. So everybody can have access to it. You can put that in your CV. If you ask for positions, you can say, I have written an article, and you can read it, and you can evaluate it if you want, etc., etc.
And my guess is that if you are doing a PhD after your master, probably, if you are writing papers, probably you will put them on preprint server. Because step by step, it's becoming the rules. I mean, like, so you can ask, maybe you can ask, but if the paper is available in preprint server, what about journals? They will say, oh no, it's already on the internet. We won't accept you to submit the paper to our journal. And which is not the case. At the beginning, it was like, some journals said, no, we don't want to receive paper put in preprint server. But step by step, I mean, all the journals, because the good journals accepted submission of preprint deposited on internet. So step by step, all journals now accept that the papers is first deposited on preprint server and submitted to the journal. So I don't know, did you do that with your paper, or you don't know, or?
Actually, in my country, every public university has a server.
Yeah.
And you are supposed to put everything you do there, all the results.
Okay. Excellent.
Usually it's their theses and etc. But the back point is in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So not everyone can read, but it's available for us.
So I encourage you, I mean, like you are in a PhD, so you're on the way you are analyzing your results, so probably like in a few weeks, few months, you will have a paper. So keep in mind this idea of putting it in the preprint server to make it available to everybody, and probably it won't prevent you to submit it for publication. So keep this in mind, and to discuss this with your supervisor. You can probably.
And this is a list of the very common preprint servers, in addition to the institutional repositories. So the ancestry of all preprint server is archive. It's from 1991. It was invented by mathematicians and physicists. Okay, from 1991. It is hosted by the University of Cornell. And then you have bioarchive, which is very known, and you have plenty of other archives, specific archives on specific domains, like in agriculture, like in French, like from Africa, like in law, etc., etc. Like in paleontology, this paleo archive, for instance, etc., etc. There are plenty of different preprint servers that you can use, or you can use institutional repositories, for instance, Zenodo, or the repository that you were talking about in the university you worked. And they are all free. Yeah, you don't pay to put your article there, and you don't pay to read the articles that are there. Okay, this is the good thing. It's totally open access, and it's for free. Okay.
So who told me that? Some of you were using Google Scholar for making search. Who is using Google Scholar? So if you are using Google Scholar, sometimes you will see the papers you are looking for, and you know on the right side of Google Scholar you have links to the paper. So you will see sometimes, and more often, a link to bioarchive or to, I mean, like to the preprint server where the paper has been deposited. So Google Scholar is crawling, I mean, like the papers deposited in.
Okay. So this is the increase of the number of articles that are deposited in the different archives in biology. So this is just biology. So the red thing is archive. So it dates from the 1991, I told you. And the green here is bioarchive, where Denis showed you how it was, bioarchive. And there are other preprint servers that are less used, but the most used one is bioarchive, this one, if you are working in biology, of course. Okay, so this is just to say that if you look at the number of articles that are deposited in these archives, in biology, for instance, this graph that I showed you before, this graphic here, okay, it is there. Okay, this very thin green thing here is the graphic I showed you before. So it means that all the preprints that are deposited in bioarchive and the other archives in biology, they are just 2% of the total number of articles that are published each year in biology. So it means that we are using more and more preprints, but it is very, very infrequent until now. Okay, so it's yeah.
But as I said, you are in master. Probably when you will be in PhD, if you are making a PhD, look at the trend. So it's only 2%, but probably next year it will be 2, it will be 3-4%. So step by step, maybe like in 5 years, it will be like 20%, maybe more of the papers submitted to journals will be first deposited in preprint servers.
Yeah, and this graphic here is just to show you that there is an average of approximately 70% of the papers that are on preprint server that are then published in journals. Okay? So most of the preprints that are in preprint server end to be published in journals. So it means that the overall quality of the articles that you can find in preprint server is not so bad. Okay? They can be published in journals thereafter, after evaluation. Okay? Yeah, we can maybe have a little talk about the impact factor, because we have not said a word about impact factor since the beginning, which is very strange because it is very, very important. So do you know what is an impact factor? Have you ever heard about impact factor in publication system? You, the PhD students, have you already heard about impact factors? Yeah?
Yes, in fact, I heard about it, but I didn't really understand what's the meaning of. Yeah.
I think it's. I think it's like it's a note that's given to the journal, and it starts from I don't know what, but it stops at 7.1 or something like this. And to be published in a journal having like a impact factor 5, like you have to be a genius.
A genius.
Yeah.
So you work in which field?
Biology?
In biology?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a quantitative number, it's a quantitative note.
Yeah.
That is given to a journal.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you know how it is computed? What it represents exactly? So it's like the quality of the journal?
The quality of the articles published in the journal.
The quality of the articles published in the journal. Do you have another? You are not in agreement with that.
I think it's quality of journal.
The quality of the journal?
Yes. For me.
And do you know how it is computed? How it is calculated?
I don't know.
Sure, but I've been hearing about that before. It's maybe from the how many the articles impacted the other researcher to replicate or to be cited to the other.
So it's related to the
citations,
the impact of the articles that are published in these journals on other researchers.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a measure of something of the journal linked to maybe the impact, the citation of the articles that are published in this journal. Okay.
This is something changed from a year to another. Like it can be like for a certain journal have an impact factor 5 for this year, and next year it's like 4.2 or 4.
So it's changing through time.
It's not something just.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have an idea of what is an impact factor?
Quality related on the article. Just quality.
Other ideas? No. Do you have an idea of the impact factor of Scientia Agriculturae? A1. This isn't something different. So.
Because you have the qualis of each magazine and journal you're publishing, and it comes from C2 to A1, but the impact factor.
So is this specific to Brazil?
The qualis, I think so. I'm not really sure. Actually, for the whole Latin America, because you all use the same system.
So it's like a classification of the journals. Okay. Okay. And so this depends on the geographical area. For instance, in northern countries, in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, they have their proper classification system, which is different. In France, we say journal of the A category or the B category. We have something like 2 or 3 categories in science. And it's different in economics. So it depends on the field, it depends on the zone of the place in the world, etc. And they are all more or less based on these impact factors. So the impact factors, it's a quantitative measure related to journals. So it's on the journals. And it was invented by somebody in the 60s to classify the journals, to give a tool to the librarians in the library to know which journal subscribe and to which journal they shouldn't subscribe. So, because they have a limited amount of budget in the libraries more often, so they have to choose which journals they will subscribe to, okay? So with this tool of the impact factor, it was a tool given to the librarians to make a classification and to know what are the journals the most important in some specific fields, in agriculture, in biology, in mathematics, etc., etc. So it was a tool for the librarians. That's all. And this tool, so it's a number, okay? It goes from 0 to whatever. It has no limit, no maximum limit. So 5 is good, but you have 7, you have 10, it exists. For instance, Nature, they have an impact factor of something like 30, okay? Some journals in cancer, they have an impact factor of more than 40, okay? So you have large numbers. And this number is a function, okay, let's say a mathematical function, of the number of citations of the articles published in these journals, the number of citations in other journals, okay, divided by the number of articles they are published during a certain amount of time. So it's a ratio between the citations made by others of the articles published by these journals divided by the number of articles published in these journals. So the more you have citations by other journals of the articles published by your journal, the higher will be the impact factor. Okay? So this is the basic idea. Another way to say that, it is during a certain amount of time, during a window of time, it is the mean or the average number of citations of the articles published in the journals, the journal considered, okay? So if you have an impact factor of 1, it means that the average number of citations of the articles published in these journals is 1 citation. Okay, this is the average number of time these articles have been cited, 1, okay? If you have 40, it means that, in average, there are 40 citations during a window of 2 years, okay, the window is 2 years. 40 citations of the articles published in these journals. Okay? Do you see the... Okay. So it is a number that qualifies a journal, but which is based on the citations of the articles published by this journal. Okay? And it is very, very, very important because all researchers, they want to publish in very high impact factor journals. So this is the guy who invented the impact factor for the librarian, and it is from, I said it was from in the 60s. Yeah, it was in 65. It was proposed in 65. And so this is for one journal, Science, okay? The distribution of the number of citations of all the articles published in Science. So what does say this curve? It says that the most common citation rate of the articles published in Science is about 10 times, okay? So 10 times is the most frequent citation rates of the articles cited, published in Science, okay? Science is the name of this journal, okay? And the average number of citation is this red arrow here. So the average is about 30. So it means that the impact factor of science will be 30. Okay? Even though most articles have been cited less than 30 times. It's because the curve is very skewed. Okay? And because you have very few papers with a very, very, very large number of citations. For instance, you have here more than 100 citations for some papers, okay? But very few of them. And this makes the average, the red arrow, larger than, for instance, the median or for the larger than the mode, okay? So it's just to show you that all the red arrows in the distributions, which are the impact factor, which are the average, are a kind of over-representation of the number of citations of the articles in this, published in these journals. Okay? For instance, if you take this guy, Nature Communication, 5,000 euros to publish in it. Remember? Nature Communication, they have an average number of citations of about 13, 15, but you see that most of the articles, they have not been cited 15 times. They have been cited between 0 times and, let's say, 10 times. Okay? But this is the impact factor. This is just to give you a definition. Okay.
Just explain why preprint is good but it's not evaluated.
Yeah. Okay. So it's to go back to the preprints. We told you that the preprints are good because they are free for everybody. Okay, they are free for the authors and free for the readers. They are available immediately. You don't have to wait for the publication of the article to be able to read it because it is posted immediately by the authors. It allows to archive the results of science. It is a proof of antecedents, and it makes the research searchable and findable. So it's almost the same than the good qualities of articles published in journals. The only big difference is that there is no peer review. There are no editors making an evaluation of the article, so there is no evaluation of the preprints. Okay, it's a parallel system which has no evaluation.
I show you bioarchive, you know, on the internet. So bioarchive, do you remember when I show you, you have access to the PDF? So it's just deposited on the internet. But the article has not been peer reviewed. And this is why most people, they just post it in the preprint server, but they submit it to journal to have a formal peer review evaluation and to publish that paper.
Yeah, so finally, the only difference that there is between a preprint server and a journal is that in a case there is an evaluation and in the other one there is no evaluation. This is the only difference because you have results published on the internet like in a journal, it's the same. You have all the same qualities here, these qualities, but there is no evaluation. This is the problem. So what we tried with Denis and with another colleague, which is called Benoît Facon, is to invent a system where we can make some preprint evaluation, where the evaluation would be disconnected from the publication in a journal. The evaluation would be disconnected from the market and from the business, okay? And the evaluation could be organized by ourselves, by the researchers, not using any journal. So what we have tried to do is to create communities of researchers evaluating preprints in their scientific field. And we have called this peer communities in. It's like big editorial boards working in different domains. So for instance, we have made a peer community in ecology, a peer community in evolutionary biology, peer community in paleontology, etc., etc. So we evaluate articles that are deposited in a preprint server, like bioarchive or archive. And it is completely free. There is nobody who pays nothing. Okay, it is diamond open access, and yeah, authors do not pay and the readers do not pay. And what we do is that we make the evaluation of the preprints and we publish the evaluation. So we publish the peer reviews of the reviewers and we publish the editorial decisions of the editors. Okay? This is what we do. So in fact, we are a journal of evaluations. Okay? We do not publish the science, we publish the evaluations of the preprint. The preprints are on a preprint server, they are published, in fact, because they are publicly available, and we just add a layer of evaluation. Okay? This is what we do. So this is the general workflow of the process of peer community in. So if you understand that, you understand everything. Okay? So you are an author, you have written an article, and you have a PDF copy of this article. Okay? What you do is that instead or before submitting it to a journal, you first deposit your article in a preprint server. For instance, you deposit it in bioRxiv, okay? Which is cool because anteriority proof, open access, free for readers, searchable, etc., etc. And then at the same time, you also submit your article, you as an author, you submit your article to peer community in ecology, for instance. And when you do that, your article is going through peer review, okay? So there is an editor in peer community in ecology who takes your article and organizes the evaluation of your article. So the editor will send your article to peer reviewers to invite them to peer review your article. Then you will receive the report of the peer reviewers with the decision of the editor. And the decision can be to reject your article, it can be to make some modification on your article, or it can be that your article is accepted like that for a recommendation by the peer community in ecology on your paper. If you have to make some revisions, if you have to make some modifications, then you can post some successive versions of your preprint on the preprint server. You can do that. Okay? There is a version 2, version 3 of your preprint on the preprint server with the modification. And then each time you give back the new version to the editor, and the editor will decide if he is happy or not with the modification you have done. Like in a normal journal. It's exactly the same process than in a journal. Okay? It's an evaluation process, a peer review process. Very classic, very normal. And then, at the end, when the editor is really happy with your last version of the preprint, then he recommends your preprint. So it means that we will publish on the internet website of Peer Community in Ecology, we will publish all the reviews, all the editorial decisions, and we will publish a text explaining why your preprint is a very good preprint. Okay? So the editor writes a text of 1 page explaining the qualities of your preprint. This is very important. This is what we publish, a recommendation text plus the evaluation procedure. And at the same time, on the preprint server, there will be a tag, there will be a flag, there will be a badge, there will be a front page explaining that this preprint is no longer just a preprint. It is a preprint that has been peer-reviewed and evaluated by peer community in ecology, by this editor, and by these reviewers, if they have signed the reviews. Okay? Yeah. So examples. Okay. So this is the website of Peer Community in Evolutionary Biology. Okay. And this is, for instance, let's take this one. This is one of the last articles that has been evaluated and recommended by peer community in. So if we go to this link, this is the link of the article on the preprint server. So this is on bioRxiv, okay? There is this article, and this article has been peer-reviewed and recommended by peer community in. And it is written here, look. It's written peer community in evolutionary biology with the link to the other website, peer community in. And if you go to the PDF, if it is the good version, we will see that. Plof. Spunk. It clearly shows that it has been gone through peer community in evolutionary biology. Okay, there is a logo of peer community in evolutionary biology. It's clearly stated that it is open access. It is clearly indicated here that version 3 has been peer-reviewed and recommended by PCI Evolutionary Biology, that the editor is Juan Arroyo, that the reviewers were anonymous. There is the link here to the reviews and the editorial decisions, etc., etc. And then you have the paper here with all the characteristics of a normal article. Here, I show you the review. They are. Yeah, I'm going to click here. Yeah, Chplof. So it goes back to the PCI EvolBiol website. Okay, so this is the name of the recommendation text because it is about sexuality and asexuality in flowers. So it was the title of the article, of the recommendation text. So this is the recommendation text written by Juan Arroyo, the editor of the text, explaining why the article is so interesting, etc., etc. So you see it's like a page, a single page with some references explaining why it is cool. And then below, you find all the revisions, and this is, for instance, the editorial decision of the first round of peer review written by Juan Arroyo. And then you have the reviews of the various reviewers. So this is the first reviewer. Yeah, anonymous here, with all the review of the reviewer, the second review of the second reviewer, the third review of the third reviewer, bum, bum, bum. You can have access here to the author reply, to the editor, explaining, okay, we have made this change according to what was requested by reviewer 1, we do not agree with reviewer 2, etc., etc. Yeah? Ah, okay. Yeah?
So when you write paper, can we cite reference from here?
Yes, this is a very good question. So can you cite a reference of a preprint that has been recommended by a peer community? The answer is yes, you can do that. So you just give this kind of reference. So this is the way to cite an article recommended by PCI here. So it's like a normal reference here, but it is bioRxiv with the number of bioRxiv, and it's clearly indicated that this is version 3 that has been peer-reviewed and recommended. And you have to indicate that in the reference of your article if you want to cite this article. And some journals may say, I am not willing to publish an article in which there is a reference to peer community in, but you can insist because it has been evaluated by an editor and reviewer, so there is no problem at all with doing that. You can do that, for sure. Yeah, this is it. And where is it? Here. So you have seen the PDF with the front page with the logo of the peer community in. You have seen the recommendation text. We can make some PDF of the recommendation text. It's not so important. It has a DOI. You can also cite. This is important. You can cite the recommendation text. also by citing the editor. And it is open access, free for readers, free for authors, searchable, etc., etc. You can find some recommendation text in Google Scholar, for instance. They are published, they are indexed in Google Scholar. This is just to show you that we have already created various peer communities so in evolutionary biology, in paleontology, ecology, animal science, and entomology. And there are more new PCIs that we are currently creating. This is a timeline that shows you that the first one was peer community in evolutionary biologists. This is because Denis and me, we are evolutionary biologists. And there are more peer communities in currently in creation. So there is this circuit neuroscience. Here you can't see it, but there is one in mathematical and computational biology here. And there is also a peer community in forest science that is under construction, and more, etc., etc. So I already showed you this website of peer community in evolutionary biology. And this is just to indicate that we are friendly with a number of journals. So it means that once you have an article recommended by a PCI, then if you really want to pay, you can submit your article in one of these journals. There are more than that. Okay, there are many journals who would accept the publication in their journal, okay, of the article, of the preprint that we have evaluated. This is for sure because we have already done the evaluation. So for them, it's very easy. They just have to publish it now because it has already been through peer review. So this is not we are not trying to work for the journals. This is not the idea, but for a temporary period of time, we want to be friendly with these journals, not to be excluded from the publication system. And so the main advantage for authors to use PCI is that you obtain evaluation of your preprint so that you can improve the quality of your preprint. This is very important. So you post a preprint on a preprint server, it is available, but you can improve its quality. So what is available to the readers is improving of quality through time, which is very important. At the end of the process, there is a recommendation text of the editor that explains why your article is interesting. So this is very important for your CV. It is very important for your curriculum, okay? And also, there are some very well-known journals that consider PCI reviews to publish the articles you have written. So it is quite advantageous for authors to use this. This is just to say that we have plenty of supports from Scientific Society, from the INRA, Supagro, etc., CNRS. And this is also very important. There are some evaluation committees, for instance in France, but also in Finland and in other places. These evaluation committees consider the preprints evaluated by a peer community as a normal article published in a normal journal. So it counts in terms of evaluation. And most importantly, for instance, in France, almost all doctoral schools linked to ecology or evolutionary biology, they consider preprints recommended by a PCI like a normal article. For instance, sometimes you have to publish to be able to defend your thesis. So if you have some preprints recommended by a PCI, then you can be allowed to defend your thesis, which is very, very important. And basically, I think that this is it. So if you have more questions, we can reply to that. Or then if you add something, if you want to add something. No? So if you have questions, do not hesitate. We have time.
Actually, I have one question concerning the preprint server. It's about like when you put like your article in open access. don't you think that there is some people that can use all the information on it?
So this is the problem of scooping. Can you be scooped? So can you be stolen
Before publishing?
before publishing in a journal? So this is one of the very classic questions that we have. Well, in fact, it is exactly the contrary. For instance, the mathematicians and the physicists, when they invented archive in 1991, it was to protect themselves from being scooped. It means that when you put a preprint on a preprint server, like in archive, then legally it clearly states, I am the owner of these results. This is the proof of antecedents, and I own the copyright of all the things that are included in this article. So it means that it protects you from being stolen, from being scooped, which is not the case at all when you submit your article to a journal, and when 3 reviewers will read your article, and they can do whatever they want with your article. They can steal your results, they can steal your manuscript, in fact, and they can reject it, okay, for the journal. And this is because of that the mathematicians and the physicists, they invented archive in 1991. This was to avoid to be scooped and stolen by reviewers, editors, etc. during the submission processes. You see?
One more question, just when you submit like your article, it's being reviewed after this by the journal. And can we just submit the new version of the article?
You can submit the new version?
Yeah.
You mean after the evaluation, for instance, here? Huh?
Yeah.
So you have been evaluated once here?
No, I mean the last step.
So
Like
here?
it's your article it's accepted and it's gonna be published, but after like several months, and you can just go back to the preprint server.
Okay. Can you put the last version of the preprint server?
Yeah.
This is a very important question because legally, you can't. Because I'm just going to show you this horrible graphic here. Where is it? Sorry. I'm just going to show you a small slide here to explain something quite important. This is the life of a manuscript from the top to the bottom. Okay, so you have the manuscript in your computer on the top, and you have a published article on the bottom here. And these are all the steps of the evaluation of an article, etc. So you can see on the left here that what the author owns is just the manuscript until the correction by the editorial board. So once your article has been modified by the editorial board, it is not exactly a preprint. A preprint is just this, or this, okay? And once it has been corrected and modified, then the journals, they think that they have an ownership on your article because they have made some modifications, etc., through the evaluation process. So it is not completely yours anymore. It is a bit there. So what we all do is that we put the last version before publication. We put it on the preprint server. But it is not completely legal, you see. In fact, what we put is it is the author's accepted manuscript. And more, the laws are changing, and we have the right to put this last author accepted manuscript on the preprint server. For instance, the Plan S, with the green open access, they ask us to do that, to put this author accepted manuscript on the preprint server. Other questions? Okay, this is very complicated.
So the idea was clearly with peer community in PCI is to make a free alternative to the publication system. Of course, we will fight against prestige. Again, people will say, okay, I like PCI, I like the idea, it's free, it's really nice, but still, I want my publication in Nature because of prestige, so step by step. So our idea is step by step that PCI will be well recognized in committees, by people, so people will be more relaxed to just leave their papers in bioarchive recommended by PCI, and that's it, nothing to pay. But it will take time, of course, because to be recognized as a high-value publication by people, so it's step by step.
This is surprising because to me, when I listen to you and if I make some prospects, I would say I would prefer a prestige of being recommended by PCI than by any journal which is anonymous, on which you don't know any discussion between the editor, the authors, and the reviewers, because we all know that there is a bunch of papers, as you have shown, that are not even read once. So, according to me, when I saw the recommendation, what you showed us, it was clear that I would prefer to be recommended by my peers. So prestige would come.
Yeah, definitely. And the idea, Thomas talked about impact factor, and people in committees, for example, for hiring a new scientist or for giving money to a project, they rely on impact factor, saying, okay, this paper has been published in Nature because Nature is a journal with a high impact factor. I consider this paper as a good paper. But that's a proxy, I mean, that's not real. So with PCI, our expectation is that we give the reviews and we give recommendation text explaining why this paper, not PCI evolutionary, this paper. So the idea is to give evaluators in committees and scientific in committees to have access to the evaluation process. So it's a better evaluation of the quality of the work they are evaluating.
Maybe we should discuss this point. When you say that Nature is a highly recommended journal, because the reviewers are the best in their disciplines. So I would say it is the way that you want to choose the peers. Because how a community will accept that the reviewers of papers are in the top of the 5 top of 10, top of the 10th. So depending, and this should, so I would say this is probably the difference between the two systems, because once you publish, when you publish in a very highly ranked journal, means that you have been evaluated by top scientists.
This is what you expect.
Yes. But usually it works.
Yeah.
The review from big journals are much better.
Yes. So what we try to do with Thomas and Benoit when people are contacting us for creating a new PCI, we tell them to contact the best scientific in their field, to have the best editors. So author, then when they will see that's very good scientists, so they will trust, they will are confident that they will have a good evaluation process. So that's the idea, making quality. So do we stop here? That's fine.
Only just last
For sure.
question. It's about like where the money goes to.
Which money?
Of,
Where does it comes from, or where does
no,
it goes
sure.
to?
We're
You mean-
paying the journals like to publish our papers. Where this money goes?
You mean in journals? It's to the shareholder.
No,
It's like
It's not paying the editors.
no.
even
This is
the
what we said.
reviewers,
No,
so
and we
it's
don't
going
want.
to-
We don't want it. We are scientists. Jacques is scientist. We are scientists, and it's part of our work to evaluate the work of the other people. So we are not claiming for receiving money for journals, but we are saying
No,
because we are
it's
making
only
it for free, we don't them to take money from us.
Yeah, I know. Like it's.
But you say where the money goes. Look at where the money goes.
So it's not only there. For instance. So. No. Where does it go?
Yeah.
Okay. So part of the money is going to investment and shareholders. Okay. And this is about 30% of the turnover. And the remaining, the 70% of the turnover that are costs for the journal, they are used to pay a managing editor. So a managing editor is like an editorial secretary that manages the papers, that sends emails to the reviewers, that send emails to the editors to say, oh, you are late, you have to send me your report, blah, 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 blah. So this is costly. Okay, it's something like one salary, basically. One full-time employment. So this is money. Then you have to pay for the website, you have to pay for the web developers, you have to pay for the software that allows you to make the management of the evaluation. And for instance, there are two big softwares, Scholar One and Editorial Management. And for a structure like us, it would cost something like 5,000 euros a year to use this software. So it's costly, okay? It's money. Then you have to pay some poor guys making the corrections of the spelling, okay? And this is an awful work to do, but you have to pay for that. Then you have to pay for some technicians to format the paper. So it means to make some nice logos and to put 2 columns and this kind of stupid thing, which is formatting. Okay, you can do that on your computer, it's 5 minutes. But you, in this situation, you pay for that in a journal. And there are huge costs in marketing, advertising, lobbying, and this is a lot of money. For instance, in Blackwell, in Elsevier, in Springer, it's a large part of their turnover that are used to make lobbying, advertising, and marketing, etc., etc. And these are the costs of the business. And these are the costs that we do not have with PCI because we don't make advertisements, we don't make lobbying. Yes, okay, we go, for instance, here to explain you how it works, but that's all. We do not format the papers, we do not copy edit the papers, etc., etc. So we save plenty of cost. We have made our proper software to make the evaluation of the preprints. So it is in-house software. We have an in-house back office for the website. So there is no more cost on it after the development. So we saved a lot of money compared to business journals. And also, there is no salary for the CEO. Okay, the CEO of PLOS. PLOS is a non-profit organization, the Public Library of Science. It's a non-profit organization. The CEO of PLOS earns more than hundreds of thousands of dollars each year, okay? Hundreds of thousands, like 200,000. You can verify on the internet, it's publicly available. It's a huge amount of money. And he's not alone. He has a deputy CEO, and he has et cetera, okay? And this is extraordinarily costly.
So we have no extra salary with Thomas with making PCI. No, that's important. So it doesn't mean there is no cost. There are some small costs for PCI, for hosting the website and all that stuff. But we estimate that for each PCI, excluding salary, I mean regular salary, not extra salary, salary of researcher. So each PCI is like 5,000 euros for running a PCI. So that's nothing. That's the cost of 1 or 2 APC. So when you reduce the cost, well. So, and we are asking some money from Montpellier Spagro or for University of Montpellier, so to support us. And that's not a lot of money, so they are giving us some money. So it's not all free. Some people say, no, it's not all free, there are costs. Of course there are costs, but it's regular cost for salary, so it's like in every journals. So, and we need some cost, but it's not so much. And so the institutions can support us, and so we can run PCIs.
Just to add something, you remember the editors, they are not paid in the journals. So in PCI, it's the same. The editors are not paid. We are not paid to do this specific job. The reviewers are not paid, the editors are not paid. Nobody is specifically paid by journals to do this kind of job, the scientific job. We scientists are not paid to do this scientific job. And there is no CEO, there is no CEO deputy, there is no marketing, there is no blah blah, etc., etc. So it saves a lot of money doing this way. And remember, the total figure worldwide, the budget, it's $9 billion. You remember that? Okay, divide by the average amount of PhD fellowship, and you will have an idea of the number of PhD fellowship that we could fund using these $9 billion yearly. It's amazing. It's something like 500,000 PhD fellowships per year. 500,000. You see? It's just insane.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think, we arrived to the end of this very nice seminar. I want to know if you have any final question, or if you want to know, maybe in.
My questions is, you say if we publish journal, we cannot put the paper, put our research to peer community, but in the contrary, if our research confirmed by peer reviewer in peer community can be used last versions that we have cite reference in peer community to submit journal. Okay.
Yes. And there are specific journals who are very happy to receive peer community in preference.
That's the idea of being invading, to be able to invade the system. We don't ask author to choose between PCI and journals. Because we know if we do that, because PCI is not well known, people will choose journals, well-established, well-prestigious journals. So we just tell them, no, go first to PCI, receive an evaluation and a recommendation process. You will increase the quality of your paper, and then submit it to a journal if you want to. First, you are not obliged to do that, because your paper, if it is recommended, it would be a valid reference. But if you still want to publish it to a journal, you can do that. So don't be afraid by choosing PCI first. I mean, that's something original, because in Diamond journals, for example, they just tell you, okay, it's free for author, it's free for reader, so it's very virtuous. So choose us. But the problem is, once published in their journal, you cannot publish it in another journal. So this is the original idea. This is something we think very attractive for PCI and for increase in prestige for PCI. And we have the feeling that we have already received a very good manuscript that has been published somewhere else then, because people were not asking to choose between PCI and journals.
And do you have maybe a final comment or question? Have you already seen or experienced a manuscript, a very good one, that you recommended, and people said, okay, we have been recommended and we don't need to be published anymore? Do you have a good example of that?
Yeah, we have some examples of that. So they are not the most frequent articles, okay, because the authors, they still want very frequently to submit their articles into journals, but we have something like maybe 5 or 10 articles that are recommended on peer community and that have not been submitted elsewhere. So the authors are happy with a situation in which they just have a recommendation by a PCI.
They put the preprint recommended on their CV. They put this on ResearchGate, which is a platform where people can put their research, their manuscript, and they say, okay, good enough for me. Don't want to go to publication and pay APC.
And we hope it will be the rule.
Yeah.
I think it could become viral. I think it could become viral because it appears to be a very nice community, scientifically based system. Okay.
Just to show you, I mean, if you want to go, there is a general website, peer community, and if you type peercommunity.org, you will find the website, which give an idea about the project, and then there is specific website for each PCI.
Okay, so we could expect that this become, as I said before, viral, and not maybe with the same PCI, but with other names. You will be copied, and you didn't copyright the idea. So if anybody has any question anymore, I would like you to thank very much these two men, these two misters. I don't know. The two guys here, and so thank you very much for coming, because it was the first JRL seminar, and I think it was a very good one. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
That's
for
it.
the questions.
Thank you, Christophe. Donc, if you wish, all this has been recorded, so if you want to see how it works, get to the internet. It was three. We were two people were following the stream. Jean-François was following the stream, and the control. So, but it is as a beginning, so it was the first. So I was working with the PhD students, so possibly it could be included by the next one. So I hope that we will make circulating the information before. You were very welcome.
Good luck with the research. Yeah.